Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. According to today's guest, Danielle Stanton, nothing about her is traditional. She has been cheated on and divorced, has been hurt and has hurt people, and has experienced depression and anxiety. She's been a single mom and found love again. She's been overweight and fought to get her body back, and has had breast implants and subsequently removed them. Through it all, Danielle has found ways to continue learning, loving, and living. Danielle's life journey has been full of highs and lows, twists and turns, and she gets excited to share her stories with people and help them know that they're not alone throughout the many challenges that life brings. Several years ago, when her life hit rock bottom, Danielle was struggling with so many confusing health issues at once, she didn't know what to do. Depression and anxiety post divorce, irritable bowel syndrome and gut issues that landed her in the hospital, heavy metal toxicity, problems with sleep and dependency on Ambien, thyroid issues, and weight gain. Doctor visits only resulted in more prescriptions, and she decided that once and for all, enough was enough. You can find Danielle on her website at www.fuel4ever.com, and that is fuel, the number four, and ever.com. Danielle Stanton, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I appreciate the opportunity to read through your introduction two times. The first time you got kicked out of Zoom, so we had to start that again. So went a little better the second time.
Yes, exactly. And I'm happy that's passed because that sounds like a lot of stuff I went through. So I'm happy that was passed.
Yeah, to be fair, I took that introduction from your website, which is a little bit less active now that you've started the company with your husband and everything. I thought it was unique, and I'm glad we used it. I know you've been through a lot, and so
it's my journey. It's my journey, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, I love that. Going through some of your stuff, you and I got to meet at Hack Your Health 2024, which was a lovely conference. In fact, why don't we just start there? What did you think about the conference this year?
I love it every year. But this year in particular, I feel like we were a little more seasoned business owners. We had a little more experience. We had another product. We have 6 total. Our first time we went, we had 2. So it was a whole different experience. We felt like we weren't the new kids on the block. We had a lot of great networking and people that we met that really responded well to our products, or like would come up to me and say, "Oh, I love your sleep product. It works." And so it just felt good to see the same people and continue to build that community.
Yeah, I love that. You and I were introduced by one of our former podcast guests, Jack Heald, amazing guy. It sounds like your booths were right next to each other, so you got to get a lot of dosage of Jack and also Krishna Hanks, who we love, and Dr. Philip Ovadia, all people we've hosted. So good spot to be in the,
definitely.
the conference. That's awesome. Well, again, going through some of your content and you read through the introduction and hear what you've been through to see now what you found, especially with you and your husband. It's so cool to know that you found love. I can tell you're both extremely happy, and so I love that you include that as part of your story.
Yeah, it was a very hard journey, and I believe in chapters of love, chapters of life. And I feel really blessed that I had that opportunity to have my next chapter of healing and then to find love at around 40, which is, you don't think it would ever happen.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, let's get into your story as it pertains to health. As we, again, read in the introduction, you've really been through the ringer as far as that goes. But your upbringing is also quite unique in that you didn't really start out necessarily in a home that was the way I was fed growing up. We'll just say that. So tell us about you.
I had my mom was cutting edge, like back in the day, just healthy, just making her own bread, never having any processed ingredients. Everything was very clean. And it was, back in the day I didn't realize how unique it was until I went to college in maybe the 90s. And then people would get, their college treats. And I didn't understand the world of the Twinkies and the Oreos because I really have never eaten those. And so it was definitely a different upbringing, but that now I'm very appreciative of it. But I also try to, I try to experience some things because I've never had, like In-N-Out for the first time, little things that I'm like, God, I've never tried this. So now I'm it's sad to say, like in my late 40s or my early 40s, I started experimenting a little bit more. And it's not for me, but at least I know, okay, I tried it. I don't feel good. this is probably the reason why my mom chose not to give me those ingredients.
Yeah. It's awesome to have that kind of base of knowledge. And I would argue like all the crappy foods that you were listing, like having, Twinkies or Oreos for the
Hmm.
very first time, it would have been very different. I would say even, 2 decades ago, even those crappy foods probably tasted a lot better
Oh,
than they
well,
do
yeah.
now. I notice that the crappy foods today, if I ever deviate, like I try not to, but like they taste like chemicals, like straight up are not good. They at least used to be good.
And when you've never had any of those, to have something that's processed with, the oils, it's not good. So
Pay the
for
price.
me, it is like very shocking. So I'm very careful in what I kind of experiment with. But my kids, I let them have a little more food freedom as far as, but we do in my house, we don't have that. But I also am not as put as much fear in them.
Got
I
it.
want them to kind of learn on their own. How do they feel when they eat something?
Mm.
What's the kind of the consequence? How do you feel? Do you sleep well the next day? Do you have energy? So I try not to push it, but I definitely I teach them by example.
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot. I'm not a parent yet. It's a journey my wife and I are going on together, and like, I wonder how I would manage that in my own house because you're right. Like, my tendency would be to be on like a little bit more of the strict end, and then I wonder, well, what happens when the kid goes to school and to birthday parties? Like, I'm not going to be helicopter
Mhm.
dad slapping every candy bar out of their hands. I'm literally not physically going to be able to do that. So have you found with that process of kind of letting kids do the best they can and letting them feel it out that that's been the best way to go?
Well, my situation is a little unique because my kids have two homes because of our divorce. So I can't control the other home. I can only control with, my home. So I buy what I feel comfortable with, and, they're happy. I mean, maybe they might tease me occasionally, like, oh, we're excited to go to dad's because he has, the processed foods. But I just try to have an open discussion on why I eat this way and the results of eating healthy. And I, at the same time, we also occasionally they'll want to go get frozen yogurt, and I try not to be so strict that it causes any food anxieties for them, or they think, oh, mom's not eating that, it must be bad. So I try not to have the fear, because I feel like maybe mine was a little strict. And I didn't know until I was older that all this world of food, not that it's something to be proud of, but it's just something I just never knew about.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's interesting too. I was just having a discussion about this with somebody recently, and it's like we don't give our kids enough credit. We don't give them enough credit for being like as smart as they are. These kids are smart. They can feel things, and I've noticed the more kids, have maybe a limited amount of options they can choose. The fruit or a cheese, stick or
Mhm.
something like that, but they start to feel better and they notice that, yeah, we're excited to go to dad's house because our diet's going to open up. But I would argue they probably start not feeling very good and they notice the effect of that. And I don't think as you know adults we give kids enough credit for being very, very smart and able to feel what do they feel good? Are they performing well and getting
Yeah,
good grades in school and playing well, in the sports they play? Like I think they pay attention to that stuff a lot more than we give them credit for.
they really do. And I have a 17-year-old son, and he calls it the lifestyle. When he gets off the lifestyle, he comes back, he goes, Mom, help me out, I got to get back on the lifestyle. And I love it because he knows how he feels. and
Yep.
and we talk about, there's the reason why our company is called Fuel4Ever. I'm like, what fuel did you put in your body? We grow our own vegetables and fruit in our backyard. We have honeybees, so everything, like, we're really about, like, okay, if you're hungry, natural source, or, here's your option if it is minimally processed. And so I love that he calls it a lifestyle, because he knows there's no fad. It's a lifestyle.
That's great. And at that
Yeah.
age, I mean, you're I assumably trying to get dates, and so feeling very confident
Oh,
with
yeah.
yourself is very, very important
Well,
at that
yeah,
age.
this morning he went on a run at 5:30 in the morning.
Amazing.
I wasn't even up. I mean, he was already running. So
That's amazing.
I'm very proud of him. And it's not something I've pushed, because again, I want him to find that inner athlete, that inner joy for food. But we are modeling good behaviors.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think when I was that age, I didn't even know that there was a 5:30 in the morning. I knew
I
the
know.
evening 5:30. I didn't think there would be another one.
Exactly. We never had the gym. I mean, they're going to the gym, they're asking about the supplements, and I just like, this is really exciting for this youth. It really is.
I love that. That's fantastic. Okay, so in the introduction, we mentioned all of these health issues. You've grown up so healthy with all these, healthy, things in the diet and all this stuff.
Mhm.
What happened with your health?
Well, I think it really seems very sudden. So around 38, I started experiencing perimenopausal symptoms. And I did not know because I thought that seems kind of early to go through. I didn't even know really about perimenopause. I hear menopause, but I didn't realize perimenopause is about 10 years before menopause. So I started experiencing just real dramatic mental health issues, just very depressed, anxious, had the anxiety would cause my stomach upset. There were just it was to the point where it was crippling.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds really heavy. How did you address that?
Well, the first thing you think of is I need to go to the doctor, to the psychiatrist and find out, what's wrong. So I didn't know any better because I was happy my whole life. So I went to the psychiatrist and he diagnosed me as bipolar because it did seem very erratic and up and down. And I just remember going, I don't really believe that diagnosis, but okay, this could happen, I guess. So he prescribed me medication. I couldn't sleep. That was a big, sign that perimenopause was happening, but I didn't know. So I was prescribed Ambien. Then it just became what medicine could help me with all the other side effects that I'm experiencing with all this other medication. And, and then at some point when the depression was so low that I was really afraid for my life, and I knew there had to be something more to this. I kept telling myself, if I'm on all these medications and I'm still depressed, what does that say? It just must not be the right medication or must not be the right diagnosis. But it took a long time of I had to go put myself in some hospitals because I was afraid for my life because it was so erratic. And then the other medications kind of made it even worse. And then the lack of sleep. And then they would just top, Ambien with something else to sleep because Ambien stopped working. And then I'd wake up shaky and groggy and couldn't walk my kids to school or drive my kids to school. So I would have to have friends help me. It really became a safety issue for myself. And I had to figure out what to do.
That's crazy. Yeah, the system is so bad. It's so bad. Like, you think you couldn't sleep because you had an Ambien
Yeah.
deficiency? Like, it's ridiculous.
And my background is I have my master's in counseling education. I was a social worker. I have my master's. I have my parents I've educated. So for this to go down this road, and they didn't know what to do either. And so the last I had to go, and some of these hospitals are not like Beverly Hills, hospitals. These are just really terrible situations that you're in because they don't know where to put you.
Yeah.
And so my last time I just was in there and I went, I gotta get out of the quicksand. How am I going to get out of the quicksand? I've heard there you can get out. I got to figure it out. And I got out and I immediately went to a functional medicine doctor and he changed my life.
Wow, that's amazing. Before we get to that part,
Yeah.
we just interviewed a woman who reversed her schizoaffective disorder, and she told us what it was like in her last psychotic episode, where they put her in an isolation room in the
Mhm.
hospital. Like, she checked into the hospital voluntarily,
Yes.
but then they kept her there involuntarily. Essentially, like, they switched it over
Yes.
where they couldn't just let her leave, and so she's having a psychotic episode. They put her in this isolation room, and she described it just like cinder block, this like cinder block room with nothing in it. And she's in Canada, so I don't know how different the system is, but it sounded
Yeah.
horrific.
I was there, the longest I was there was 10 days. And I will say
Oh my
it,
goodness.
it was a long 10 days. And there was freedom to meet other people, and there's a TV. And I had my own cooking class because I was the only functioning person that could actually use the utensils and cook and
Wow.
be safe. If that said something, and there was probably about 50 people. I was the
Oh my
only
goodness.
person. And I remember sitting there and the people were so believable. Some of their disorders, it was so sad, but so believable. And I remember just thinking, I don't belong here. I don't belong here, but you're in it right now. So you got to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And you just have to call people, call all your resources. You have to journal, you have to pray, you have to do whatever you can and just keep yourself aligned with who it kind in some way it felt a little like jail. You align yourself with the positive people that you felt were safe, and the nurses, and even the nurses were like, what are you doing here?
Wow.
And I know, and it was probably, one of those situations where they kept me in too long.
Wow.
But with that comes a gift, because now I know my mental health is a priority no matter what. And that includes all aspects of my life, like sleep and, stress and what I put in my body. That is, to me, it's non-negotiable because I know what happens if you go down that road.
Wow. Such a great lesson to learn and share with other people on platforms like this so they don't have to go down that same path. I remember when I started hearing the stories, and they were funny at first. Like, you'd laugh when somebody would be on Ambien and they'd sleepwalk and eat
Mm,
everything in their kitchen and not remember anything. And then it was like not quite as funny when you're hearing about people getting DUIs and people like
yeah.
falling asleep, drooling in an intersection, like at 2 in the morning, like crazy stories. Did you have any like episodes? I know you mentioned safety, but hopefully that was like precautionary.
I didn't have that with Ambien, but I had that with a lot of others on top of it, where it was just suddenly, it was a lot of shaking. I felt like I don't know my husband knows the term, but like my head would shift, my brain, like I would feel it shift. And and it happened all the time. I never really felt like stable. I just always felt like just very erratic and um, nervous and with all of this. And then
Wow.
the sleep really wasn't quality sleep.
Right. It's knocking you out.
No, and then just when I woke up, it would take me like 3 hours just to even get awake.
Yeah.
And it
Wow.
just was, it should be illegal what they
Yeah.
gave me. It really should.
That's crazy. And then I mean, we hear all the time that the kind of medications we take for mental disorders cause weight gain. Was that part of the weight
Oh,
gain story with
yes.
you as well?
Weight gain, 20 pounds, um, you name it, inflammation, gut. I mean, my gut, that was probably the worst part because anything I ate, it just stayed inside. And it was just, I was always constipated and pains. And it was, so then they give you like a Band-Aid again to fix that. And there's never a cure. It's always like, here's just something to make it the relief. And then you just get down that cycle of just taking everything just for that quick, like, oh, I feel a little relief for an hour, and then it just comes back.
Yeah. Wow, crazy. Okay, so I would say probably 9 out of 10, maybe 99 out of 100 people don't ever get out of that situation, right? Like they stay
No,
in the medical world. It's not the doctor's fault. This is exactly what they're trained in. They're just doing what they're supposed to do, which is we don't even care about your disease. We care about how to treat it so you can manage it so you can have this disease for the rest of your life. And hopefully it doesn't get worse, which is always, it always does. How did you end up finding functional medicine?
you know, I, it's so interesting. I started Googling, everyone starts Googling, like what diet should you do for mental health, or what options are there for mental health. And I started seeing like this common theme of gut and hormone health. I kind of keep seeing, and this was 9 years ago. So this was like before everything's gut mind now, but this was
Wow.
not really that prevalent back then. And so I started seeing all these buzzwords and I said, there must be a local functional medicine doctor. So I Googled and found someone that was in my hometown, and I made the appointment. And the first day he met me, he said, you are not bipolar. I can guarantee you. I bet you have no hormones. When did your mom start perimenopause? I said, well, she didn't really know, but she said around 43. And he said, well, that could have been the time where she started seeing symptoms. It could have happened before, and yours could be more severe and then made worse by all the medications that you're on. So he did a whole, then we started down the panel of hormone health, gut health, and it just, my life changed.
Wow. As you were going down this journey, I'm assuming it was pretty quick that you started to feel a little better. I would think that even just hearing the message of you're not bipolar would probably almost like placebo make you start feeling better. Like, yeah, I'm not bipolar. Like thinking more clearly. And did you notice all of that?
Right. Like, well, I would say the hormones took a couple months because it was so low, but I had to also wean myself off the medication. So I did that very carefully. So that kind of took some time. And then the gut repair definitely took a long time. I would say a full year to really feel better. But I would say hormone health probably 6 months.
Yeah, got it. Okay. But knowing also that every day could have been a small improvement, letting you know you were
10
on the
times
right
better.
track. Again,
Yes.
looking back, like, yeah, it was a year of not feeling great, but like yesterday was
Yeah.
worse than today, kind of a thing.
Well, and I journaled daily just to kind of see where I was at. It was always like, oh, feeling better. Today I'm happy, or I have energy. So it was just every day, it was just building more blocks to make me complete again.
That's amazing. I was going to ask you about the deprescription of your medications. Was your functional doctor pretty in the know about that kind of thing? Did you work
Yes.
with him on that?
Yeah, so I worked with him, but then I also did not work with my psychiatrist because I had fear. He put the fear in God with me as far as, typical bipolar people, they get off their medication and we just need to be really careful and you could have a manic episode. And so I had this fear. So I continued to see my psychiatrist for a year while I weaned off and didn't tell him. And it was like this fear, like I have to go see him. Okay. And every time I go, I got to tell him, I got to tell him. And finally I told him, and I said, I just want to let you know, I'm not on the medication. It's been a year. And he said, get out.
What?
He said, get out. He said, you're gonna relapse. This is not good. And it's been 9 years that I've been off.
Get out.
9 years. And so I just feel it was sad though that he put me in that, to his defense, he probably had no education in hormone health. So, it's not entirely his fault, but I wish he would have just said, I'm so happy for you. I'm happy that you searched and you fought hard for happiness, because this was not a way I was going to live. I was not going to live that way. There's no way.
There's just there's ways that you could say those same words, like get out of here, like get out, like
Get
Elaine
out.
DeGeneres and
I know.
Seinfeld with a giant smile on your face, like get out of here, you fixed your Bible, amazing.
I know.
That blows
Just
my
get
mind.
out. Yeah. So
that blows my mind.
he,
Wow.
Again, I thank him because I just to have that motivation even more, just to say, okay,
Seriously.
yeah,
All right. Yep.
we're gonna keep going. And he's retired now, and I would love to send him a note, just so you know, 9 years later,
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
only on bioidentical hormones. That's it.
That's amazing. Good for you. That blows my mind, but congratulations, and really like your mindset around that as well. Now we learned that as somebody's titrating down, especially on, again, the pharma that we use for psychiatry, that sometimes you can have rebounds in symptoms and they're temporary, but sometimes people think that, oh, I'm experiencing symptoms again, so this diet sucks or this isn't working right. Did that ever happen with you?
Oh, well, with hormone health, you're going to have spikes even on bioidentical. I'm going to have at some point in my cycle, something's going to happen. And I think that's where you really have to recognize your own body. And I cannot stress to you enough that women need to understand their cycles, and they need to understand kind of this mood, like what's going on. Could this be too much progesterone or too little? Is this like your testosterone? You have to kind of have an understanding of the month and where you're at. So I really learned, okay, this probably seems like I'm experiencing this. This is what I should do. Rest. I had like a toolkit. I always call my toolkit of rest, cold plunges. God, I use that for mental health. Like I drink water, and people love to make fun of it. It has been like my saving grace. I don't need a PubMed study to tell me that I feel better, even if it's placebo. I'm going to jump in that water and it makes me feel better. So I just think you have to have hope. You have to grab onto anything. And I think I just grabbed onto everything possible. Food was really big too. I felt I really went high fat from the brain just to really help, because read a lot that a lot of mental hospitals used to use keto. It's not something that does well with my body now. I don't eat that way, but I definitely increased my fat while I was kind of weaning off and going through my hormonal kind of journey.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I wanted to ask you about the bioidentical hormones. I'm going to come back to diet in a second, but the bioidentical hormones, there's so much stigma around this. I notice this all the time. I notice women suffering who refuse to even like consider it or talk about it. There's in my opinion, really poorly done and crappy data that is about hormones that weren't bioidentical, that it didn't go that well. Again, really confusing and confounding variables, and I think it's a bunch of garbage data. But I also see the women that start taking them would not ever stop taking them, or would not stop working with a functional practitioner to help work with them to make sure they manage the levels. They feel so much better. They're so much more clear. They're way happier, mood way better. Tell us about your experience with those.
Well, I will probably never get off of them. And I feel like for me, it was a game changer that I got in. So I started around 39. To me, so I'm 49, it's coming soon. It's a game changer. So I would not be where I am mentally, physically. I sleep through the night. I sleep like a baby. I don't have mood swings. I don't have where I'm having a hot flash. I don't have anxiety. I feel really blessed that I had that resource to go and do this. And I also think the fear, again, people tried to talk me out of it. Oh, I hear really bad things, and cancer and breast. Oh, you got to be careful. And I just talked it over with my doctor. There's a lot of research for the pros of it. And for me, there was more pros than cons. And I felt like this was just for my life. I had to do it.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. It's cool that you came across the research about ketogenic diets and mental health. I just got back from the Symposium for Metabolic Health in San Diego, where an entire day was just presentations about mental health, latest studies about ketogenic diets with, severe depression, severe anxiety, reversing bipolar. It was really cool too, because I could set next to my friend Robin at the conference, who is 100% carnivore, and she reversed her bipolar. And we're sitting and watching Dr. Brett Scher on stage, and he's interviewing Hannah Warren, who did the same thing, reversed her bipolar on a vegetarian diet. So love that we have so many different options. Yeah, it's great. And I also just wish that people understood what you said. I think was really important. I don't want to miss this. Ketogenic metabolic therapies can be very, very, very powerful. They're not what somebody needs all the time. Yes. But when somebody is trying to restore healing, they're trying to get more fat and ketones as an alternate fuel source. That is a very powerful targeted tool that somebody could try, that has very, very low risk and a huge potential upside. And you may not need to do that for the rest of your life. You may need it for a time. And then over time, you might be able to shift to more of like a kind of generally low carb, but very much kind of whole foods kind of a diet. Can you tell us like what your experience has been like with that?
I love that, what you just said, because it's so true. So my experience was the ketogenic diet was really, everyone's searching right now for like, if they're really sick, they're trying to find like, what's the lifestyle? What do I do? And some people are just trying everything, and some things work and some things don't. For me, the ketogenic worked mentally. While I was going through this process, I felt happier. But then I also had other tools. I had, exercise. I was sleeping more. I was doing cold plunges. I was, taking more time to rest. So there's a lot of that involved. So is it one thing? No, it's a combination of everything. And I think I just said this already. I don't need a study to tell me that that helped me. I just know it was one of those tools that just made me happier.
Yeah. I love that.
So, but what I love now is it was a great for then in that situation. And then now I like to live the way I can live forever. So it's a lifestyle that I can do with my kids. It's a lifestyle I can do on vacation. It's a freedom, and it's also a lifestyle that works for me. My diet is very unique than your diet. I can't have eggs. I can't have dairy. So there's certain things that just I'm eliminated right away. So I think that people need to understand, like, let people do what makes them happy. And if they find healing from it, great. What's the problem? And
I
I
love
feel
that.
like there's so much negative energy on the carnivore and the keto and everyone, the vegetarian is all this fighting. And I like to really follow everyone because I like to see their viewpoints, but I just want people to let people live and be happy and just, give, if people are finding success, great. Isn't that what we want?
Yeah.
So, and then it's your choice how you want to live with that. Do you want to continue, like you said, or do you want to try a lifestyle that maybe is less restrictive?
Yep. I love that. That's fantastic. Um, the infighting drives me crazy. It drives me nuts. I have done a carnivore diet for 5.5 years, and like people saying, "Oh, you're not carnivore because you had like an avocado," or it's like, come on, like we're up against multiple trillion-dollar industries
Yeah.
that are fighting against us in every
Yeah.
way with ultra processed foods. I think we can all kind of come to a bit more
Yeah.
of a consensus and realize we're kind of all in this together.
Yeah, to me, it's unbelievable that I love science, but I also feel like if there's not a study, then it must be bad or
Yep.
it must, and it's like, again, go with what works for you.
Yep.
And I think if you're happy and you're healthy and, you can have, the only person that can tell me how I'm feeling is me. I have to like listen to myself when I eat that food, what happens?
Mm.
My husband loves red meat. I can't process it that well. And I think it's because as a child, I didn't have a lot. So I try, I'm like, oh, let me have a little red meat. I don't process it well. Does that mean I'm not healthy because I don't have it? No, I don't have any nutritional deficiencies. It just doesn't work for me. So I just think people need to be a little more kind and just let people do what makes them happy and live life. Like we're so worried about longevity. Let's just live.
I love that.
It's like we're so worried. It's like just live.
I love that. Yeah, that's fantastic. And by you not eating red meat and eggs, that makes the prices stay low for the rest of us. So thanks. We
Yes, I
appreciate it.
know, I know. And I
I,
grow my own vegetables and fruit in the back in my yard based on what I can eat. Because I am careful. Not every vegetable is gonna, be nice and gentle on my stomach. So I know what I can eat and I grow them.
yeah,
So that's how I feel and I love it.
cool.
And I have
Yeah,
my honey and so if I want my honeybees are in the back and if I want some honey, I can go get my honey.
that's amazing. I've heard like raising bees is amazing.
It's the best experience of my life. I
That's what I
can't tell
keep
you.
hearing.
My
That's so
husband,
cool.
not so much. They don't like him. They
Really?
he gets stung every time.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny. Oh,
We say like it must be your soap or something, your scent, but they're
I
fine with
love
me.
it. I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, on that note,
Yeah.
I think it's super interesting when I listen to your story, and I love what you can do, and I'm very jealous of what you can do. Like I've heard you say, like we go on vacation, I can eat bread and other things, and then I get back, or you say like I'm going to a movie, I can have, a diet soda or something, just a little something.
Mhm.
With people that eat the way that I eat, and you're kind of talking to like a group of people who are just we want to be moderators, and I listen to what you can moderate. I'm just like that sounds cool. Why can't I do that? Fruits and vegetables, what's wrong with that? And I
Mhm.
just know it starts me on a slippery slope. Like even just something as simple as fruit. Fruit is awesome. People should have fruit. That's fine. Like,
Mhm.
but I get really hungry and I get really severe sugar cravings, and it's not that easy for me to kick. And so for me, I just have to kind of call myself an abstainer. It also makes me wonder whether there's so many of us that call ourselves abstainers. We could be moderators just with like different foods. I think it goes both ways where maybe people are being too over restricted, doing a very strict carnivore diet when they could include other things, or I also see where somebody starts to include some of the foods that usually they'd be able to moderate, but then it creates a binge and could create a cycle that they never recover from. So I see it go both ways. What are some like tips and tricks that you would, or some thoughts you have
Yeah.
about that, of like how would somebody know, get to know themselves the way that you're describing? You can eat something. How do I feel? I know that this is good or this is bad. How do we get there in a better way?
And I guess I think of right away, like my first thing is binging, and it's like, I don't know if people are binging on blueberries, you know what I mean? Like, or apples. So I'm like, I guess the ultimate goal is you've got to do what makes you feel good. But from someone that's been restrictive, like a lot of her life, like the more balance, but balance doesn't mean having a Twinkie. Balance means like incorporating healthy foods like fruits and some vegetables. Um, I do really well with broccolini, but like a bigger broccoli, awful. It's terrible.
Interesting.
So I grow broccolini, or, not everyone can have that option to grow, but like blueberries and apples, and I love strawberries, and I can't imagine not having them. And it's not something I binge on. What I would binge on if I go and eat something processed, then I'm going to want more of that. So I think the food freedom needs to be like, okay, let's kind of open up, maybe trying some things and see how you respond. If you have blueberries and suddenly you're binging on them, then maybe it's not the best thing. But I mean, I would think that's really rare. But I don't know. I don't have, my relationship with food is very different than when it used to be. So now I have a lot of food freedom, and it feels very liberating,
Yeah, I love
because I
that.
really know what I can have. And
Mm.
then also traveling, I just recently went to Italy, and I did have issues. I had a meal, and I asked what oil they use, and and they use peanut oil. I was sick as a dog. I
Wow.
could not, it was 2 days of just the GI, like that oil just wreaked havoc on my stomach. And, again, like a lot of times people say, oh, well, you're in Europe, it happened to me.
Wow.
So I think then after that, I just became very careful when I was in Europe, how I ordered, how it was prepared, and I just asked.
Got it. Yeah, the thing I'm taking away from this, somebody on a stage somewhere, one of the conferences I went to, asked the audience, like, what's the best quality of study that we can do? And we all muttered it's a randomized controlled whatever. And he's like, no, it's an N of one. When you're the one person, the only
Mhm.
study that matters, like you said, is
Yeah, yeah.
your own experience. So experiment with things, know where you need to put up your fences, and make sure you protect yourself from the crappy processed food that's gonna make you sick
It's
for 2 days.
true.
That sucks, to be sick for 2 days
Yes.
on vacation. It's
I
like,
know. And then, like for instance, eggs. I mean, eggs are fantastic. I mean, I love eggs, but I don't do well with eggs.
yeah,
And it took me a long time of like, Danielle, I think you have, and finally my functional medicine doctor's like, Danielle, you got to give up eggs. And I
yeah,
didn't want to give up eggs, but then I realized the problems I was having with them.
yep.
And so again, it's listening, it's that inner self, like, okay, this doesn't seem to be processing well. And if you're doing well with your diet, sounds like you're doing well with it, then, have discussion, like maybe incorporate little things, but then just kind of take it one day at a time and kind of see where you want to be, maybe when you're 60, 70, how
Great
you want
advice.
to kind of like let this evolve.
Yeah, that's great advice. I was a little sad for you when you said the eggs, and I also, with myself, I've noticed a little bit, like if I have too many, they don't sit that well with me,
Yeah.
so I have to be careful with them. But I got a little sad for you
I
about
know,
the
because
eggs.
I was like that. I would love to have chickens and
Uh,
do that. And I was like, oh, and I've tried them all. Trust me, I've tried them all. And I don't want to do the digestive enzyme because again, I'm just like, if it doesn't suit me naturally, then I'm just gonna listen.
I love that. That's wonderful advice. I really appreciate that. You were just talking about longevity and living to 60, 70, 80 and
Mhm.
beyond. This has also impacted the way you view, I'll call it exercise. We could call it movement or whatever. You've really changed kind of your mind and the way you approach your exercise. Obviously, you're very, very fit and a great example for the rest of us of what you should be
Thank
doing.
you.
Tell us how you've changed your mind about exercise.
Well, I was like the cardio junkie, Peloton queen, every class, boot camp, I was killing myself. And suddenly, like about maybe I would say 2, 3 years ago, I just said, I'm going to try just a little bit more being gentle on my body. and just walking with purpose and just lifting weights 5, 6 days a week. So I walk with purpose, I like to say, because I like to walk and walk fast or walk, hiking, or just, a couple days a week, if that, and then and just lift weights. I'm just lifting heavy weights. And I had goals. I wanted fitness goals instead of weight loss goals. I wanted to do pull-ups. So I was like, well, how do I figure out? So during COVID, I was like, I want to do a pull-up. How do I do this? And my husband's like, well, it kind of takes some time. And so with that training for a fitness goal, I lost weight, and I lost about 40 pounds.
Wow, that's amazing. And did it take time to transition over to strength training? Did you have an aversion, or did you have the idea that I don't want to be bulky, that kind of thing that we hear all the time?
No, I was never afraid of muscles and feeling like I kind of knew the knowledge that I was gonna most aesthetics that I look at, I know, okay, it's gonna be lifting weights. It's not gonna be anything. They have the muscle. I love that. I love that feeling of being strong.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love
Yeah.
that you use the term walking with purpose. I don't think there's many, if any, movements that are better than a really good walk at a nice pace, good
The
clip.
best.
I think it's the absolute best thing you could do. Did you end up missing any of like the Peloton classes or any of the stuff that you were doing all the time, or was it easy to say goodbye?
It's funny you say that, because my husband is very into the Peloton and doing all the classes, and but we're very, like, he's on a different journey than I am, because I'm almost in menopause. So it's just a different journey. So I watch him and I'm like, I mean, sometimes like, you want to go on a run with me? I'm like, no, I just, because I know the result is not going to be favorable for me. That
Yeah,
stress is just not going to be good on my body.
gotcha. And in the weight room, what are some of your favorite lifts to do?
I mean, of course, everyone loves lower body, glute bridge, but I'm all about the delts. I just love that look, and so it's all about just kind of really sculpting those delts and getting those arms. I'm almost 50, and I want to be, when I'm 50, I want to have that tank top, and I want to feel like I have that muscle there.
Nice.
That's really, for me, and I can lift myself up and be strong and
I
go
would
into menopause feeling strong.
I love that. I would put my money on you looking fantastic at 50.
Oh,
So I
thank you.
think you'll be very successful at that.
Thank you.
So eventually you and your husband started a supplement company. Can you tell us a little bit about that story? Why you decided to go down that path, and what kind of I guess solutions you're hoping to provide for people.
Yeah, my husband and I started our company based on my own health journey. So it's kind of, so while I was going through this, I was like, I was finding out I had a lot of nutritional deficiencies, like magnesium. And my husband is an RN, and his dad was a compounding pharmacist. So he grew up understanding about supplements, the importance of finding, sourcing good ingredients. And so when I started going through my nutritional deficiencies, I needed a sleep aid. And I couldn't, figure out, we were trying to like wean me off Ambien. So we started playing around with magnesium. And I remember kind of going into a store, there was no magnesium was not under sleep 9 years ago. It was not there. So my husband said, let's play around with different kinds of magnesium, and let's get, lemon glycines, he knew all the ingredients to make calm and ashwagandha. So we kind of started playing around with all of these ingredients. And then we made a tea. And I said, this is fantastic. Like, we should do this. Like, we should make this. That's how it happened. I was
Wow.
counselor, social worker. He's an RN, sedates people. And then we just went, okay, let's create a brand. We had no idea. We were very naive. So we created that. And then he's a big intermittent fasting, but he likes to exercise while he fasts. So he created hydration with creatine and an essential amino acid, because he loves fasted exercise, but he wanted to feel like he was preserving muscle, and felt like he loves drinking supplements. So he made that for kind of himself. And then the bars were like I wanted to contribute to the shelves, because I'm tired of the grocery store shelves of protein bars. And I just wanted to create a healthy bar, minimally processed healthy bar. I thought there's a reason why it's not out there. And there is a reason, because it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, I had one of my friends that was making an all natural protein bar, and the stories that she would tell us about trying to produce it and
Sure.
transporting it and making sure the formulation, the
Sure.
ingredients, you name it. It was a lot.
And then you're up against Nestle and you're up against these products that you're like, it's a candy bar, it's a candy bar. So it's hard to compete. So, that's our company really started based on my own health journey and then my husband's experience.
Mm,
And we just said, let's create like what we want, what
yeah.
products we feel. And we were going for, aminos and electrolytes. And we're like, why can't it all be in one? And
Mm.
so that's kind of how it all came together.
Wow, amazing. There were three in particular that I wanted to kind of ask you about. The first was going to be the magnesium. I get confused all the time. There's so many different kinds of magnesium, and this one's good for this, and this one's bad for this. I have had pretty decent success with the type of magnesium that you guys do, which is kind of getting a lot of different ones all together. Is that right?
Yes, and each one, and my husband formulated it based on certain ones are for deeper restful sleep. Each one has kind of its muscle, gut. Everything has its reason, and he formulated it really strategically based on that. And for me, my experience was magnesium because I was deficient. So about 60% of people are deficient. And that's not something when you get your labs that it's tested. So a lot of people don't know. So when we're at Hack Your Health and I say, try the sleep, and tomorrow come up to me at the booth and tell me what you think, and they go, it worked. Right away, I just go, okay, they're deficient. And it really will have an immediate response.
Wow. Interesting.
And
60% to me sounds low. That's interesting that it's not even more than that.
It could be, 60 to 70, you hear 70 and,
sure.
But as far as what I see, 60 to 70, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, you look at the population of people coming to Hack Your Health, and not everybody is perfectly healthy, but it does self-select, and you see definitely a lot more healthy people than a population base. And I would argue that because all of us are so active, we like to work out, and we're doing so many things, that maybe the magnesium deficiency is worse for us.
And then I have girlfriends too that tell me, I have leg cramping, and it completely stopped all my leg cramping. My 81-year-old dad's like, it helps me relax because he's still practicing law, and he's like, my brain won't stop, and all the ingredients kind of calm him down at night. So, does everyone need a supplement? No, but again, you have to go to listening to your body. If you're having sleep issues, like for me, I just tried everything to figure out what worked, and melatonin didn't work for me, and I would get headaches off GABA. So I created it based on kind of what worked for me.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I agree with you completely. Like, not everybody needs a supplement, but magnesium just seems to be one that a lot of people could be using and benefit from. So that was one I wanted to ask you about. I wanted to ask you about creatine.
Yeah.
One of my favorite supplements. I don't take it nearly as regularly as I need to, but tell us why you decided to use creatine in your supplement line as well.
So every ingredient we use always has a reason for it. So you would think, oh, okay, they're fit, they're working out, it's muscle preservation or muscle building. When it really comes down to there's a lot of reasons we love creatine, but also the cognitive component. Again, it comes back to the mental health, to what it does for, there are studies that say it's very promising for cognitive and, it's so for us, again, it was picking that ingredient that also it's so well studied. So we felt comfortable. And it was just, again, picking something that would help me because it really helped me in my journey. And again, it's another tool. Is it the one thing? No, but it's all the tools that you need if you're going through something.
Yeah, I love that. Now, is your creatine is in the mix with the kind of fasting supplement,
and
right?
We dosed it at 2.5 because typically a lot of women are a little tentative to take creatine because they feel like maybe the bloating or the weight gain. And I try to tell them, don't worry about that so much. So we dosed it lower to there. And then if they wanted to get the 5, then they could just double the dose.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. You're right about creatine being the most tested supplement in the world, and the mental benefits are quite interesting. I'm glad we're learning about that now. Really, really
and I
cool
think
stuff.
it's going to be even more. So when you get more information out there, it's going to be even more. And so for me, again, it's just what are all the things that I can take that are going to help my lifestyle, and it's not going to hurt. So
Right.
it's only going to benefit.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. The last one I wanted to ask you about that I know you guys include is the MCT oil,
Hmm.
also for mental benefit.
And
That's why I use it. Like, tell us
yeah.
about why you wanted to use that.
So when I started the bar, I knew that I wanted to use healthy fats, and the fats I also wanted to help for cognitive. And so for me, the MCT was the best option, the healthiest, and also for a collagen bar. It's collagen's dry, so I felt like it would add a softer texture to the bar, which it did. Why we use collagen? A lot of people can't have whey. And then pea protein for me does not settle well with me. And I felt like, if I'm going to do a bar, let's do a protein source that is good on my gut. So while whey is, they say, superior, there are some studies that are showing the high glycine amount in collagen. So I'm really excited to see the studies of collagen as well. But yeah, so the MCT was just added to as well for that mental health and healthy fats.
Yeah. Okay. If I understand this right, we need to look at different proteins and different amino acids for what they do in the body, right? Like I've heard
Hmm.
that maybe whey is better for building
Yes,
muscle, but it doesn't really do as much for your joints, your
the
gut, or all the
skin.
different
Yes,
rainbow of things we need collagen for.
yes, exactly. So for the skin, hair, and nails, I mean, collagen, is, and I think there's going to be a lot more studies coming out that people are going to really see the power of collagen. And so
Yeah.
for us, we decided to pick something that also we can eat, that I can eat. These are products that we create based on a need for us too, and what's not out there. I look at the protein bars and I'm frustrated, so I just said, I must be able to contribute what I think is a healthy bar.
Yeah, I kind of gave up on them, so I haven't looked in a while. But I remember the last time looking at your local health food store at all the protein bars. And you're like, these are terrible. There's not a good option in here.
No. And when I go in, I try. So our company does a lot of demos at grocery stores because I want someone, when they buy our bar at a grocery store for $4, I want them to be happy with it. Because
Yeah,
I go into grocery stores, I take the bar and I just throw it away. Now, this is disgusting. And it's supposed to be the best, candy bar version of protein. I always, when you see a bar that's over 20 or around 20 grams of protein, there's going to be artificial ingredients. You can't get around it. The closest I got was 14, 15 grams, no artificial ingredients, low sugar. You can't, it's almost impossible unless it's a huge bar. It's very hard. So while, 20-gram bar looks appealing, what is in there?
yeah,
And
great
that's
point.
where, and now I know all the tricks of the protein bars. So I'm like, okay, I see. And unfortunately, that's hard because you see a lot of people gravitate towards these bars that are just not the best for them.
Yeah,
I-
I
You know,
agree. Yeah. Well, good for you for going that route. I think that's very, very helpful and will help a lot of people. This last year, you said you expanded from 2 to 6 different products.
Mhm.
Anything you're kind of looking at for the future that you might kind of start to get into?
Right now we're just enjoying this journey of it's been about almost 3 years of building the brand. It's not easy doing it. Husband and wife, we were a little naive because we went into sleep, hydration, and collagen. So we picked like the toughest fields, toughest areas. So right now we're just enjoying, we're in over 70 grocery stores. We got Amazon's Choice badge. We're in big businesses. I just want to, I want to just keep this momentum as far as like helping people sleep, finding solutions for maybe fasting or hydration. I would love to I have an idea of something for food related, but I just I have to see what people think of a healthy version of what I put out, and then we'll see
Yeah.
if that next level, if it's something that people will take, because it is healthy. So you always have to, it's not, a chewy gooey candy bar. So, yeah.
I wish I got that answer more frequently. That like we're good where we are. We've done a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's not always about ever expanding and new products and all this stuff. It's like you can get to a point where you can appreciate what you have. You can
Yeah.
keep working on what you have, and it doesn't always have to be like more and more and more and more stuff.
And it's funny because a lot of people will say like, "Oh, what do you think of like gummies, or what do you think of this?" And I said, if we wanted to make a lot of money, we would just put out a gummy. It would be
Seriously.
super easy. But we don't really believe in taking all these supplements. So we're kind of interesting. While we own supplements, we kind of pick the ones that we felt are really important.
Mm.
And so I don't think we would expand unless something came out and it was like, oh, you really need it and it's not there. We just feel like we want to contribute to things that you really like should be a staple.
Yeah.
And some of it's such a fad and it's a lot, and the pricing is ridiculous. And we know this. So we see, our supplement is lower than some that are just an amino acid or just an electrolyte. And we're like, what? You get all three and creatine is less. And because they're at a position where they can do that and people will pay for it.
Yep.
So we always said we wouldn't do that.
Mm. I love that. That's fantastic. I think that's a great barometer of a way to tell, what the true values. What do you really, really value? What are you willing to compromise on, and what are you willing to stay firm on? And so I think that's a great way to end this conversation. I just really love that is part of your value. Tell us where we can go to find you and connect with you in your work.
Yes, so we're at Fuel, the number 4EVER, fuel4ever.com. We're on Amazon as well. But if you order from the website, we always give fun, free samples to everyone. And that's one thing that really sets us apart. When you order sleep, you're going to get samples of fast and the bars. We always try to just share what we make.
Cool.
So yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, we'll link that on the show notes. Are there any other social accounts you want us to tag as well?
You can follow me on my personal Danielle N. Stanton at Instagram. I really talk a lot about being a business owner and also going through my hormone health and fitness journey, and then Fuel4Ever _ as well.
Cool.
So.
We'll link those up as well. Danielle, this has
Great.
been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate everything that you've been through. I'm again just so glad that you Googled and got into the right field and got into a functional medicine that could have gone easily the other way. So really cool that you didn't give up and you kept pushing, and now you're on the other side to tell the story and share your story with others. So thank you so very much for everything. Yeah. Thank you for everything you did. Thank you for taking the time to be on our show today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Of course. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.